Before we have the roll call of officers, I'd like to turn the floor over to Laura Wyatt to introduce the new council director.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Lynn Wyatt. I'm with 2nd District Supervisor Zach Scribner's office. This evening, I would like to introduce you to Seaneen McArdle. Thank you. She's been appointed to fill one of the vacancies on this board by Supervisor Scribner. She has an extensive resume. I think she'll be a valued asset to this board. But I'll let her tell you a little bit about her background.
I'm going to keep it a little short tonight, but anytime anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. I've been a resident of Kern County for a little over 30 years. I have a degree in environmental resource management that I obtained at Cal State University, Bakersfield. And I've worked at the local level at our local school district in the community as a substitute teacher. I've also held positions through Kern County and the federal government. And it's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I plan on working hard for that privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Parkman?
Here.
Brandon Riley?
Here.
Donna Morris here. Lisa Chesley?
Here.
Dennis Schaffner?
Here.
And it is Seaneen? Seaneen.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda. The agenda is essentially the same as the agenda that was for the September meeting. Due to funding needs, we did not have a September meeting. So moved. Anyone second?
Second.
All in favor?
Who second, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We'll go with 6 ayes.
Can we remind everybody to put your phones on silent, please? Thank you.
Okay, we do not have minutes for the September meeting to review and approve. There is a statement that will be going into the record indicating what occurred to cancel the meeting last month. But we do have to review and approve the meeting minutes for the month of August. They're attached to the back of the placeholder.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. Motion by Director Ryan.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
What is that?
I don't know that. I'm just
Okay.
It's another device.
We're going to do 2 community reports, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to Lorelei to do her thing. And the 2 community leader reports that will be right out of the box will be Kern County Sheriff and California State Attorney.
Sergeant Anton for Kern County Sheriff's Department. Sergeant Mike Kerr is off right now. He'll be off for a little while. So I'm filling in for him tonight, but I'm also watching all the East Kern, so if I have to leave, I'm gone. For September, Rosamond had 762 calls for service. The East area, it's including Tehachapi, Mojave, Rosamond, had 1,833 calls for service. Rosamond had 31 arrests for the East area. We had 74 arrests. Rosamond took 117 reports, and for the East area, there were 237 reports. A couple things that happened in the last little bit of time. We had a couple shootings, one in Rosamond and one in Mojave. Both of those shootings, the suspects were arrested, guns were located, and both of them are in custody. We've had a couple search and rescues for autistic children in Rosamond. I know a lot of you guys get the Nixle or Ready Kern or stuff like that when we put it out. The last one, with the help of somebody that got either a Ready Kern or a Nextdoor, they were able to send us in the right direction, and we found the juvenile in the desert off of 50th and Rosamond Boulevard. So we work on a lot of things out here. We have power outages both in Kern Valley and Tehachapi that we've been dealing with. Tonight I'm waiting to hear, because Kern Valley is supposedly on the hook to be turned off, but right now we're good to go. Another thing that's been coming up lately is phone scams, especially among the elderly people. Phone scams are a big thing. There is no government agency that is going to ask you to pay with Green Dot, Walmart Cash, or any of those other cards that they're asking you for. So if someone's asking you for that, you know it's a scam, don't give them any money. If you have a question and think it's a scam, call us. Someone will tell you it's a scam. So, as you all know, we were all on video, what, 2 weeks ago? It all worked out good. The agencies got together. We were able to get everything handled. And we were all on news for everywhere, pretty much. Lieutenant Williams will talk about it a little bit. I said all 3 agencies, 2 divisions of 1 agency were involved. It wasn't as smooth as it looked, but it actually went pretty well when it came down to all the deputies and CHP officers.
What happened?
You don't know?
No.
Are you done?
Yeah. I'll let John explain.
All right, you done, though?
Yes.
All right, since he's done, I'll go ahead and segue in good. Okay, so last week there was a high-speed, crazy pursuit that almost everybody in the country, and possibly the world, saw. It's
Crazy.
Yeah, so it actually started with a stolen vehicle out of Palmdale. Sheriff's Department was trying to catch it. The bad guys were driving so unsafe that they actually had to abort the pursuit because they just knew they were going to kill somebody. They made it into Rosamond and got out with guns and carjacked the truck. The truck belonged to somebody attached to Willow Springs, so some of you probably know more. And I'm not going to say names, so obviously, but after they took the truck, they ran some more. Highway Patrol was chasing them. The vehicle launched out into the desert. And one thing that you have to remember is that we at the time did not know if the female passenger was a victim being held at gunpoint or with the suspect. So our first operational thought was to secure her. We know the bad guy is going to go to jail tired because he's running out in the desert. So their first operational thought was to get to her. When they did that, the one officer neglected to secure his car, and the bad guy circled and got in the police car and stole the police car. And so now we've got police cars chasing police cars, and for all of you that saw it, fortunately the bad guy came to an abrupt stop in a ditch and was quickly taken into custody. We did recover the gun, and we did discover that the suspect was, the female was with the suspect voluntarily. Although that happened in Mojave's area, that was not a Mojave car. That was actually a Lancaster CHP car that was stolen. So, but you know what? The one thing is we do have a lot of lessons learned out of these things, as we always do. These things are extremely dynamic. I mean, we're talking about really bad people with guns that are harming other people and doing things. So there's a lot that we have to think about, as well as public safety and our own safety. And you know what? If we lose a car, we lose a car. The most important part is that we were able to secure the female, regardless of whether she was a victim or not, and we were able to get the bad guy, and nobody else got hurt. So at the end of the day, a piece of equipment was damaged, and maybe we were embarrassed a little bit, but it really wasn't as bad as you think, because You have LA County Sheriffs, Kern County Sheriffs, Antelope Valley CHP, Mojave CHP. You've got the media overhead before law enforcement helicopters overhead. And so you've got so many different agencies with different frequencies, with different dynamics changing every step of the way. You've got one agency that's securing the car that they dumped, you know, and the victim at gunpoint, not realizing he was a victim. And then you've got another agency driving past them on different frequencies. And there's just so much dynamics happening. Like the sergeant said, at the end of the day, we actually did a good job. You just don't realize it until you know what we really did. So now I want to piggyback on the power outages. So in theory, when they cut the power, they're not supposed to cut the traffic signals. Stallion Springs, when they cut it, they did cut their power to the traffic signals for a brief period, and then they got those back going. So I just want to give you guys a friendly reminder. If we get power cuts out here and the signals go down, we treat them all as if it's a four-way stop sign. Okay, County Roads probably isn't going to be able to come out and put signs up, and I'm not going to be able to put officers out there. But just remember, if they're blacked out, it's a four-way stop. And if two people get there at the same time, who gets the right of way?
The one who got there first.
If two people get there at the same time,
One on the
one
right.
on the right. So we don't want cars bumper carring it in the middle of an intersection, okay? So just a friendly reminder. So we've all known that we've had a truck problem. I get a lot of complaints on trucks from Avenue A, Boulevard, TWS. And so I've been asking for a specialized truck to come help us out. The Highway Patrol has a mobile commercial unit. We call it MRE, and it's a pickup truck with a shell on the back, and they have lots of stuff. They can actually set up a roadside truck stop, and they can actually weigh the trucks. And I haven't had one here in Mojave. Well, the good news is I'm hearing that one's coming. So I think we found the truck. We're just trying to find somebody to drive it. So hopefully very soon you'll start seeing a CHP truck driving all over the place, and their sole job is going to be commercial enforcement. So we can probably address some of those issues that we've been experiencing on TWS that you guys see.
That's great news.
So hopefully that's coming soon.
Wow.
West Park Elementary. I get a lot of calls on it. So those of you that are aware, if you have kids that go to school there, the pattern on how drop off and pickup has been changed. So one thing we have to remember, West Park didn't just change it on a whim. They met with us, they met with the Sheriff's Department, they met with County Roads. They actually had the head engineer with County Roads at this meeting, the top guy. They went with all the district personnel. We had this huge meeting and we discussed pros and cons. And remember, if you've ever seen how West Park goes, when you're on, see, I'm going brain damaged here, Imperial. When you're on Imperial, where normally the drop-offs would come in, you have people walking their kids, right? Because it's residential around there. They're walking their children between these cars, past all these cars. And some of these folks are in a hurry. They may not be wide awake yet. There's some bad driving happening. They're going around the folks that were with the crosswalks. And it's very dangerous. It's been very dangerous. It's been very hectic. However, on the backside, the school buses will be able to come in, drop the kids, and go. And so what we've done is we've rotated it to where the parents drop off in the back, and there's a lot more room where they can drop off now, and the buses drop off in the front. So now we don't have all that conflicting traffic. We're not taking these kids and throwing them in front of cars anymore. They're actually safely walking across and walking into the office. And so drop off has been a lot better. The school's been reporting it. It's much safer. It's a lot better. Pickups hasn't been so great. You know, a lot of folks want to get there early to pick up their kid. And then when their kid isn't the first out, well, now they're blocking. And other people have their kids and they can't get out. So we're working on that with West Park, but we're going to give this some time, let it flow, and hopefully over a couple months it works. If it does not work, we will put it back. This is not permanent. This is just temporary because we're trying to figure out how to fix the traffic problem at West Park Elementary. Okay. Trunk or treat's coming up, right? So Halloween's coming up. Thanks to Linda Parker and Tara Jen, the Highway Patrol has a bunch of candy, and so we're going to actually expand how many locations we're going to be at. Here in Rosamond, we're going to be at Wayside Chapel. So we'll have an officer there, and I'm sure the Sheriff's Department's going to have a car there with us.
I don't know that look, you know.
You know, with all 150 guys he's got working that night.
That's right.
But we'll see. But we're going to be in Rosamond, Mojave, Tehachapi, Boron, Cal City, Ridgecrest, and possibly in Sand Canyon. They've been begging for us to come out there, and because we have enough candy, we're going to go ahead and try to expand it again. So this will be a good year for us. So if you want to go with the kids or you want to send people up there, trunk or treat is a great thing to do because you can be in a nice, safe parking lot where there's events, there's food, there's candy, there's tons of people there. But if you insist on, or know people that insist on trick-or-treating door to door, from my perspective, just remember, wear bright clothes, carry a flashlight, be highly visible. We don't want people getting hurt. We've been in Rosamond, we've been pretty successful the last couple of years. We were not successful in Tehachapi last year. We did have an incident, so just, if you guys are gonna do door to door, please light the kids up. Make part of their costume extremely bright or reflective. And let's see.
You get a lot of candy donations from dentists.
That's where all the apples keep coming from, so I don't know. And then lastly, Rosamond's been good. We haven't had any fatalities, but we haven't had a great week. Sunday I had a fatality on the 58 near Tehachapi with 2 people that didn't make it. And then a couple hours later, we had another one on the 14 at Camelot where 1 person didn't make it. And then unfortunately today, we just had another one at the 58 and 202. This person was not wearing their seatbelt. And we're seeing a lot of that. People are not wearing their seatbelt. Seatbelt saves lives. So when you get in your car, and if a passenger gets in and they don't do the click, don't drive away. Make them click that belt, because the one today, for example, was very slow speeds. But unfortunately, the steering wheel hurts, and this person had internal bleeding and didn't make it. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Lorelei Obias to do a presentation on the cannabis proposition.
Okay, there's a handout over there. If you haven't gotten it, it is only 1 page, both sides. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Lorelei Obiat. I'm the Director of Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Department. I've lived in Rosamond over 40 years, but I do commute to Bakersfield every day, and I thank the CHP and the Sheriff for keeping me alive for the last 25 years in my daily commute, so thank you. And Caltrans in the winter. The first thing I want to say about, I'm here to talk about this cannabis situation initiative on the March ballot. The first thing I want to be clear about is the Board of Supervisors would have done absolutely nothing. They are 100% behind this ban, but because we have a citizens group, which they have the constitutional right to go and get a petition, and they did, that is qualified for the March 3rd, 2020 ballot, the Board of Supervisors believed that that particular proposal did not adequately address concerns that we have for community participation. So just to be clear again, the ban that we have. Now that we have a fully functioning, fully licensed California City dispensary that provides both recreational and medicinal and also has a license to deliver, there are no concerns by the board that patients would not get whatever it is they need. In Central Valley, Arvin, the city of Arvin, is right now regulating, and they're going through their permit process. And so patients who want medicinal cannabis rather than hemp-based CBD, which you could buy at CVS and other places, would have access to it. The Board of Supervisors, however, made a referral to myself and County Council to look at that initiative. I brought a report forward. So that is the David Abbasi Latu medicinal cannabis measure. That particular measure was designed such that any of the shops that were open before January 1st, 2018, and there were up to 21 of them that would qualify in Rosamond, would automatically have to reopen with no conditions, no public hearing, and no opportunity for the Board of Supervisors to put additional conditions on. That was unacceptable. The same is true of Oildale. The 2 communities that are the most impacted by this is Rosamond and Oildale. Oildale has along Chester Avenue about the same concentration over the years and the same problem. Now, we have some scattering other operations that open in other parts of the county. We have one in Tehachapi, unincorporated. We have one in the Kern River Valley. We have one out of Ridgecrest. But the main issues were for Supervisor McArdle and Supervisor Scrivener, who said this is not acceptable, that we would have no control over this. So they said, if the voters want this, we want to give them an option. If you legitimately want unincorporated communities to have medicinal cannabis retail stores, fine, we're going to give you a different option. So on October 8th, it was adopted by the board. This is just a summary. Up here is the website. We have posted on my planning website, the cannabis land use page, the full text of the David Abbasi Latu medicinal cannabis and the full text of the counties. The counties would be a conditional use permit only in industrial zones. So industrial zones only, M1, M2, M3. Downtown Diamond Street is not industrially zoned, and so there would be none in downtown Diamond Street. There would be none out near the library or those types. Industrial is principally along Sierra Highway. So as you know, where the sheriff's substation used to be, that area, and the AVDC, which is responsibly closed, those are industrial areas. But a conditional use permit requires a public hearing, requires public notice. The RMAC would get notice, the neighbors would get notice. There would be a public meeting at the Planning Commission. Conditions have been placed into the ordinance, and if you turn this over to the back, there is a long list of mandatory setbacks. So it's not just being an industrial. You would have to be 1,000 feet from any other legally established. If we had one CUP that was approved, the next one would have to be 1,000 feet away. Okay, 1,000 feet from schools, K through 12, 1,000 feet from public parks, youth centers, libraries, churches, and city limits, which don't apply out here. And then if you had an industrial project, we only have maybe 2 areas in the county where this applies, where there's industrial and then there's residential next door. That building would have to be 350 feet from the closest house. But we don't have that many situations like that, but we wanted to be sensitive to that. There is a long list of signage requirements. You can't put a mural on the front. You can't put advertisements on the front. You can't put 2-for-1 sales on the front. The only sign you can put outside is your logo, whatever that is, a green cross, name, operating hours. You can put any kind of signage inside that you want. But the public, we're going to regulate how they interact with the community. So those are in the ordinance. And this is all built into the initiative that would be on the ballot. There are requirements for operating hours. So as an example, if I can find it here. Oops, did it fall off? It may have fallen off here. But the operating hours in the counties are 10 to 8. The ones in the David Abbasi are 8 to 10 at night, 8 in the morning and 10 to night. So now those could be changed in our process, the county's process. If the Planning Commission, for example, if the public came forward and said, okay, yes, it's an industrial, but there happens to be a bus stop. We're asking that you limit the hours because of the presence of children. So maybe they shouldn't open until noon, right? The Planning Commission could put those kinds of restrictions on. The Planning Commission could also say no. If the Planning Commission says no, then the applicant can pay to appeal it to the Board of Supervisors. They would have another public hearing, notice. The board could then say, yes, maybe, here's some conditions, or they could say no as well. The idea behind this is obvious. The communities have had no say whatsoever in the previous locations and operations of the medicinal cannabis operations that you've all experienced. There was absolutely no public hearing for those. There was absolutely no public permitting for those. The last piece is, even if the board said yes to a conditional use permit, they have to get a state license to open. A state license is not easy to get, You can't be a felon of, you can have a felony for cannabis, but you can't have a felony for anything else. You can't have financial interests that are connected to those types of things. They do an extensive financial investigation. If you have criminal ties, you're not going to get a license. There are other restrictions in regards to the edibles that you can sell, and we feel confident in those state restrictions. So, what happens on March 3rd, 2020? There's going to be 2 of them on the ballot. They don't have letters yet, so I can't tell you what the letters are. You know, they put letters on these initiatives, so we don't know what they are. But one is called the Kern County Medicinal Retail. The other is this medicinal cannabis measure. The other difference is the county's is only retail selling of medicinal cannabis. No growing, no production, no manufacturing, no making edibles, no distribution. The other one allows for growing, it allows for all sorts of things. It allows for relocation. So if you were operating before January 1st, 2018, you get to relocate without a public hearing. It's allowed in commercial, it's allowed in industrial. We just think this is too much. Now, there's been accusations that the board is, quoting, splitting the vote. I don't think that's fair. I think that the law allows for the Board of Supervisors, as long as they have an environmental impact report, which they spent $500,000 of taxpayer money to prepare, that they legally can put something on the ballot. So all's fair. The cannabis industry went out, raised money, got names on a petition. That's fair. The Board of Supervisors put it on the ballot. We put ours on the ballot. Now, what do the voters need to do? Well, one of them has to get 50% plus 1 vote to pass. If they both get 50% plus 1 vote, everything fails and the ban stays in place. So that's the choice. So the board is asking, if you actually want this, we ask that you vote for the counties because it really sends a message to the communities that the communities have a say, just like they have a say in where everything else goes. They have a say in where liquor stores go. They have a say in where we put gyms and spas and everything else. Why should they not have a say in this particular issue, given that there is access for patients in California City now? It would be different if there was no access whatsoever. We're also sensitive to the fact that many of the customers for the past were not Kern County residents. They were coming from LA. I want to thank LA County. LA County code compliance is the reason that the 2 signs at the on-ramp in LA County are down. I called LA County code compliance and asked that those signs, which are not legal, be taken down. So both those signs came down eventually. AOC sign and Vape and Bake sign, which were just an invitation at the Avenue A off-ramp that you should come to Rosamond to get, you know, cannabis. And we're working on the sign on Sierra Highway that's right behind. AOC is an illegal operation. We've been in court 3 times now. They've been ordered to shut down. They shut down, they reopened, and we will continue going after them. 5 grams on Sierra Highway, their lawyers just cut a deal to close. And that is thanks to the persistence of the Sheriff's Narcotics Unit at constantly confiscating what they had there. We are not going to tolerate illegal activities by the cannabis industry. So what you see now is what we're calling the hardcore ones that are left. And we will continue. We are in court every week, and we will continue our operations. The Sheriff's Narcotics Unit has been a tremendous partner, as well as the state of California. The state of California's Cannabis Enforcement Bureau is actually California Department of Fish and Game Rangers. I guess they're called Rangers, gentlemen? Yeah, they're called Rangers. And they have been in coordinated actions. And then, of course, you're very well aware of the the large grows that have been recently taken down. A lot of these operations, I'm not going to say every operation, but many of these operations have criminal ties. They're doing more than just cannabis, and so that takes time to investigate. So it's not just an example of you go, you knock on the door, and you knock them over. It is really an entire coordination with the district attorney. So we appreciate your patience that there are still some that appear to be open. We know that. We continue to ask that if you see someone that has not ever been open, that you think is open, that you contact my office and I will get that information to the appropriate people. So, March 3rd, 2020. So does anybody have any questions on the ballot initiatives?
I do. Why is it they're allowed to have a felony for cannabis and still have a cannabis?
Because the voters voted in Proposition 64, and now, of course, all misdemeanors are also wiped out. So the only, but just so you know, the majority of the people who are kind of the bad element, these are felonies for violent crimes, violence, assault, burglary, and other sorts of things. And those are the things that people are concerned about. So what they did is decriminalize cannabis. It's been decriminalized when the voters voted in it. Oh, one other thing. There is a difference between the business tax. The county's initiative, if passed, would put a $35 per $1,000 of gross receipt business tax on cannabis medicinal sales. The other initiative is not really imposing a tax. What they are saying is that the Board of Supervisors could impose a tax. So they didn't even impose a tax. They wrote it to say that if the voters vote, then the Board of Supervisors can have another hearing at which we're sure people will show up and protest and maybe even sue, to put a $37.50, I think it is, yeah, 50 cents per thousand of gross receipts. The county's tax is general fund to allocate to all sorts of things. Law enforcement, yes, but also parks, libraries, animal services, aging and adult services. The Latu David Abbasi measure actually tried to sell it by saying that it was specifically for law enforcement, drug abuse education and treatment, and K through 12 education. As a reminder, the Board of Supervisors does not manage K through 12 education, but that's fine. I'm sure that the tax assessor could send it over to them. The fact remains that if you vote for that one, you are not voting for a business tax. You're just voting for the permission that the Board of Supervisors could have a public hearing and impose it, but that leaves us open to that we might have to take on a lawsuit if we try to impose it. This is not going to produce a lot of money. It may only produce, even if we had, 20 in the whole county, it might only produce, $500,000 a year or whatever. It's not going to produce a lot of money. That was not the intention. The intention was to compete with this business tax idea that was in the other initiative. Certainly we will always take money, and that could be money that could go into our library, into our parks, into this building, and into things that we need to do.
Can you tell us what this approval limited to temp cup for the 3 years, what does that mean?
Oh yes, thanks for reminding me. So we have it written into the zoning ordinance that would be adopted for the counties, that if you come forward for a conditional use permit, it's required that it's only good for 3 years. So you're not going to get a permanent CUP anyway. You're going to get a 3-year CUP, because we want to see if you follow the rules. And you have to have a state license.
They have to reapply then after that? Or
Yes, they do. Then at the end, right before the end of the 3 years, we've used this for animal rescues, we've used this for other sorts of things where we want to make sure that people understand the rules. Then they would have to go to another public hearing, and we could see how it worked out. Maybe your hours didn't work out. Maybe it all worked out, and then we could give you one that goes on forever. You know what I mean? Like maybe if you're a good follower of the rules, then your next CUP wouldn't be a temporary one. You could have it for as long as you wanted, or we could not approve it again. And we could say, you know what? We gave you a chance. You didn't follow the rules. There were people on the sidewalk smoking, which is not allowed. There were, for example, the sign ordinance says that you can't put signs on the sidewalk, which is not so much a problem here. Well, it is actually, but it's a big problem with the illegal ones in Chester Avenue, where you can't even walk down the sidewalk without tripping over a variety of signs. You can't have spinners. You can't have people out there waving that, if this is truly for medicinal patients, then why does it have to be in a commercial corridor? So one of the logics, I've obviously gotten every question. One of the questions is, Why would you put it in an industrial area? The impression that people have is that industrial is like industrial. It's not. People go to Ben's to pay their bill. That's an industrial area on Sierra Highway. People go to industrial areas all the time to do a variety of things, right? So our point is it is not like a pharmacy. I can go to a Rite Aid, the one we have, because I want to buy some aspirin that's on the shelf. There is no such thing for a medicinal cannabis operation. There's nothing that I can go in and buy on a shelf. I have to have a card to get in, and if I'm not a patient, why should it be where children walk by? Why should it be on a commercial street? Because there is no walk-in trade. People have also raised concerns with these doctors who give the referrals. I know that it's hard for everyone to feel it, but the number of doctor offices have actually closed. And here's the reason. January 1st, 2018, the rules changed. A cannabis retail store cannot have a doctor in their store. A doctor who makes these referrals can have no financial connection, and they have to be registered with the state. The AMA, the medical board, actually came out with rules about this. There have been many, many prosecutions against medical doctors who have not followed them. So the old idea, which is when it wasn't really heavily regulated by the state, was, you know, you could go in, you could pay your money, you could get it that day, you could walk in, and you could have it all happen there. That's not legal anymore. You can't do that anymore. So the number of doctors has gone away because it's not lucrative anymore. Second, in order not to pay the tax, which is 17%, which is the tax that goes to the state, you have to pay $100 a year to register your card, your medicinal patient card, with the state. And if you don't, you have to pay the tax. People don't want to register, fine, they can pay more money. Now, the concept of people going to the black market is not my issue. We do everything we can to keep the black market down. That's the narcotics unit, that's the sheriff's unit, that's the state of California. The people who say that by us not making it easy for people to get it is like saying that I should manage bootleg alcohol. It has to get it tested, and before it's harvested, it has to be tested. If it tests over that amount, it has to be destroyed. And we already have some state of California investigations of certain fields where we think the testing has failed. It has to be immediately destroyed. So that's all managed. We actually believe that the CBD, which is hemp-derived CBD. So how many people have seen this product in CVS? Anybody notice the fact?
I have it on.
You have it on, right. So it's hemp-derived CBD, which is a little bit different from cannabis-derived CBD. We think that that industry is actually going to start driving out cannabis. There is a hybridization that happens. If you grow hemp and you grow cannabis, the cannabis will turn into hemp, not the other way around. So we are going to be driving out the cannabis industry. So we like that idea. Hemp uses less water. Our farmers need a crop. Are there some hiccups right now? Yes, and we're going to keep on top of those, and we are working with, this is our first harvest. It's a very, there's not out here, but there's 7,000 acres of hemp in Kern County. Larger, 5-6 times more hemp grown here than any place in California right now. It is labor intensive. It's all hand harvested. They're working on creating, this is a lot of jobs associated with it. Arvin is the only place where they are processing hemp into oil, CBD oil. You can only do that in an ag zoning. You cannot do that in an industrial. You can't bring crops into an industrial area to process. I don't let carrot makers bring carrots into industrial downtown areas to process. We have plenty of ag areas to do that in. So that's what's the story on hemp. It looks like cannabis. It has a slight smell like cannabis. It doesn't smell quite as bad as cannabis, but that's the story. That's the story.
So you said there'd be public hearings for each location going into a community?
On the medicinal retail store initiative, correct.
And will those public hearings still be held in Bakersfield, or will they be held in the community that's being affected?
No, the planning commission meets in Bakersfield. You can watch it online. You can put comments in the record. You can ask for us to open the Mojave remote testimony if necessary, and we'll be glad to do that. And you can give remote testimony. But right now, our planning commission hearings are in Bakersfield. And the RMAC will, of course, get a notice if it's in the Rosamond, Willow Springs area, and you can comment on it in writing ahead of time with your recommendation, including any, if it's a big no, then no. But if it's here's some conditions we'd like to see, we can do that. But that's only if that initiative passes.
So they didn't necessarily follow the rules when we said close because we voted on it. So what makes us think?
What do you mean you voted on it?
Well, when everybody voted and they said, no, we don't want pot here
Okay, the only people who voted on it is, okay, I want to understand what your question is. There was 2 initiatives on the ballot in November that had nothing to do with the Board of Supervisors, who had already banned it. The Board of Supervisors voted to ban it.
Correct.
Got it?
Correct.
It was, the only referendum was these 2 initiatives. That was voted down. Okay? So the ban's been in place. Now what is your question?
Right, so it's been in place, but we still have pot shops open.
Yes,
So
that's
what-
called defiance of the law. I thought I just talked about that.
No, I
thought
understand
just
that.
explained that they're defying the law and that we are using the narcotics unit and the courts. The courts, the judges give us an injunction. We go, we confiscate everything, they reopen. We're just gonna keep doing it until they close.
So with this new, say the one for Kern County does get voted in, what's to
They
say
all have
that
to
they're?
close. They all still have to close. All the ones right now will not be legal under the Kern County ordinance. Under the David Lovatsky ordinance, they would be allowed to continue to operate with no rules except a state license.
Right, but I'm going with one for Kern. So
Okay.
say it gets voted in, what's
We will
to say that they will, that they'll follow those rules? That
Well-
there won't be still, I guess bootleg is the best way to say it, that there won't be others to open up and not follow
So what's the
the
enforcement
rules.
mechanism?
The same enforcement mechanisms we have now. I have illegal agricultural trucking operations that I go after. I have illegal, let me think of something else. I have illegal swap meets that open. I have people who put up illegal signs and we go after them. The idea that there's some perfect, that everybody follows the rules isn't true.
What?
A lot of people don't follow the rules, as you know, and so that's why we have code compliance and we have things, so we will continue. Now, if you have a conditional use permit, though, why would you spend $8,000 or $9,000 to go through the planning process, then spend $9,000 to go through the state process and not follow the rules? Why would you do that?
No,
Why would you
about the
spend?
ones that wouldn't even go through that process.
Then we will go to court again and shut them down. We will do exactly what we're doing now. We will go after them, and all of the ones, I'm telling you, we are close. If everybody who's been here a while knows, we had way more than we have right now. And we have some intransient ones that on Diamond Street that just fire their lawyers and bring in a new lawyer and fire new stuff. We, however, are wearing them out. We're using your taxpayer dollars to do this. So for those of you who support the medicinal cannabis industry, just remember that the people who are not following the rules, there is no special pot of money. We banned it, therefore we get no state money from Prop 64. It was written into Prop 64 that all those hundreds of millions of dollars that go to the state, if you are a county or city that allowed it, then you can get enforcement money from the state. But we banned it, so we get nothing from the state, no money. So all of that is taxpayer money. Rather than giving it to the sheriff, rather than giving it to parks, we're spending it on our lawyers, going to court, because these people, many of them, file frivolous lawsuits. Well, for those of you who are, got any lawyers in here? Paralegals? All right. People who have been in court? Just kidding. Frivolous lawsuit, there you go, yeah, exactly. The truth is, and it could have been because somebody brought a frivolous lawsuit against your business or something, right? There's this misconception that people have that if I file a lawsuit, that I can just go and say, hey judge, it's okay, get rid of it. No, you have to file a brief. You have to show up. That all costs money. You have to spend money. And then the other side files a motion. Oh, Your Honor, I was wrong. I didn't mean it what I said on page 6. I have a new brief. I have a new brief. And due process, this is the unending problem for for law enforcement, the DA, and everybody else, which is that they can string it out. Here's the difference. Yes, I get it. The county sometimes has a budget problem, but not this budget problem. And we have worn many of them out, just like 5 Grams, who finally gave up and their lawyers said, okay, we'll close. Okay, we are going to wear them out. We are not going to stop. We're going to keep going to court, and one by one by one, and at some point, you know, if we keep confiscating what they have, the DA has also said that they're going to start bringing more criminal charges, which you have to prepare a criminal case differently, and I'm not going to go into that in great detail. So we're not going to stop. And you are not eligible to apply for a conditional use permit if you're operating illegally right now. That's called a violation. You have to close. You have to prove to us that you've taken everything out of your store. You have to go through a whole thing. You have to settle your lawsuit with us. Then maybe you can come back and try a conditional use permit. But I just want to remind you that the only places that are industrial, ABDC, you know, legitimately closed. We're still watching them, but they did close. They're industrial. You know, we're not sure what Golden, whatever their name is, Empire and the old sheriff substation is doing. We don't know if they're actually, we're keeping an eye on them. They're industrial. But Diamond Street's not. There's no industrial in Diamond Street. All those people would not be eligible for this conditional use permit.
No, there's a residential house with the ABDC. How would that fall?
That was not a residential
No,
house.
it's not.
No. That is not a residential house. That's just a building up on Sierra Highway. I don't know which ABDC you're talking about. The one on Sierra Highway.
Yeah, the
That's
house
not a
that's
house.
behind it.
The house behind is legal non-conforming in an industrial zone. You can, if you have an industrial zone and you have a house, you go and you get a change of tenancy and you can operate out of the house. They got building permits to operate out of the building. Well, they may be living there, but they're allowed to live. We're still allowing people who use medicinal cannabis to live. Just kidding, Donna.
Wasn't there a distance that you can't be from a house? Did I get that wrong?
That hasn't passed.
No, I'm just saying, if it does, how would that fit in?
I don't know. Oh, I don't know. I refuse to have speculation on specific. I've had cannabis people come to me. I refuse. You know, we got to vote first. Y'all vote on these. Yes.
Marla, I was just wondering, I know that you probably can't, I don't know if there's anything restricting you from doing it, but, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And for a lot of these people to go to Bakersfield, it's tough on them. I've watched the hearings. There's usually the meetings are well attended by the pro-cannabis industry, but would the Planning Commission consider scheduling a special meeting for Rosamond, open this room up to where they can really, because you said there's 2 communities, Oildale and Rosamond, where it's a problem. Have the Planning Commission come to Rosamond where they can actually see 200 or 300 people in this room.
I will take that under advisement, but you've all got to vote on March. If you voted in, then I can take all sorts of things under advisement, but I'm not going to commit to anything right now because right now there's a ban. And we're perfectly happy with the ban. If both of these fail, the board is perfectly happy. The board is not, as many people suspect and accuse, you know, the accusations are flying again that this is some sort of conspiracy and, you know, this is the paranoia of cannabis use. Okay? There's a whole conspiracy here. We're going to somehow then afterwards adopt an ordinance that favors people. No, we're not. We're not going to do anything if they both fail. Now, if the other initiative, the David Abbasi-Latou initiative passes, there are parts of it that we don't consider legal, and so we may institute litigation against it. But that doesn't mean the whole thing would go down. It means there's certain portions of it that may be illegal, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, if that passes. But remember that the bad part is everybody in Kern County gets to vote on it, including the cities. The cities get to vote on it, even though it only affects unincorporated Kern County residences. So if you care about this, you've got to get people interested in voting.
So it was only clear to me in the last minute that this is not an either or. These are just 2 separate.
Right.
And you can ban both. You can
You
say
could.
no.
That's exactly right. Vote no on both of them. Which is, I apologize, but thanks for clarifying that. That's what they call split the vote. I'm sorry, you're right. The idea behind the split the vote is people came and they said, oh, you're only doing this because voters, I mean, their viewpoint of voters was kind of low, by the way. Voters, when they don't understand something, just vote no on everything. I said, you know, I think the people in my community are pretty smart. And, you know, that's the American way. You put one on, we put one on, let's see what happens. Once again, right? If you don't want it, vote no on both. If you want it, we're just asking that you vote for the one that gives the community a chance to weigh in so that you can be good neighbors. If you want the other one, vote for that, right? And we'll all live with the, you know, what happens. And at the end of the day, everybody who's illegally open now is still going to close. And we're going to continue our legal press against them, because if we let up even a little, that's a problem. It's the pressure that makes that happen. We might be getting a standalone Starbucks. Can I get everybody excited about that? No? Yes? Maybe? I understand that we are concerned about the other coffee shop, but I think they'll be fine. I think Sister Sis will be fine. Near Albertsons. Near Albertsons.
So will the one in Albertsons come out?
I have no idea. I don't make those decisions, but I don't go to that one. I drive into Lancaster like a lot of people do. So. You know, someone once said that the way you know that a city has arrived is when they have a standalone Starbucks and craft beer industry. So my question is, do we have a craft beer industry here? Do we have anybody who's doing craft beer yet?
Sits back on the sidewalk.
Yes. So we need a craft beer industry here. Say again?
A bank would be nice.
A bank would be nice. I must admit, though, and I appreciate you're all interested in that, the trend, of course, is, how many people have actually been into a bank? I bank online. My bank is in Lancaster at the Bank of America for the last how many years. The unfortunate trend is not to have tellers in banks. That's why we have trouble attracting one. The other reason that bank had a problem is because it was too easy to rob. People would jump off the freeway and rob it. It got robbed a number of times. That's why they instituted, does everybody remember that bank? Who was here when that bank was open at the Albertson Shopping Center? Yeah. They created a room that you had to walk through, which was actually a metal detector with an automatic lock. And the reason was they were robbed over the course of about 2 years with a rob, because you could just jump off, on and off the freeway.
And how many got stuck in that room?
Exactly. That's where I was going to go with that. People would get stuck in the room. But yes, if a bank wants to come, but our trend is banks are now Capital One and some of these other banks are starting these kind of combinations, and so we would allow that if they wanted to come and do that, where they have other, like a coffee shop and whatever. Yes.
So when you close down these shops and confiscate all their stuff, what agencies are involved in that operation?
The sheriff, narcotics unit, the sheriff's deputies, and the state of California, and then the DEA.
Because, I mean, as far as I know, we don't have enough sheriffs out here to just do what, regular stuff.
Right. No, it's a different unit. It's a different unit, and I get it. We don't have enough deputies. Once again, not my budget unit.
The sheriff's department got a raise, right?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I mean, we can have the CA. We can have someone from the CAO's office.
The question I have is, what hope is there for us to get some more sheriff's deputies?
Yeah, that's a question for that guy.
Well, no, I don't think it's a question for him either. He's just someone who's.
He's more apt to know than us.
I don't think so, but you can ask him.
Oh, he looks pretty smart.
No, it's not about smart. It's about okay. I don't know what the county budget is working on. The real answer is that we have to get a 1/2-cent sales tax or some other kind of alternative funding source for public safety. Just a reminder that yes, we got SB1 money, which was for the roads. We are one of the only counties that doesn't have what's called a fair share road tax. Everybody else has a half-cent sales tax just for roads. We don't, so there's plenty of roads grants funds that we don't qualify for. We don't have a tax for libraries. That was voted down.
Yeah.
We don't have a tax. Was it close? I can't remember if it was close.
No.
It wasn't close. That was voted down. You know, and many other jurisdictions have this half-cent or 1 cent or 2 cent tax for law enforcement. And so, you know, the sources of revenue for property taxes and other sorts of things, we're doing the best we can to diversify. But I just want to remind you, I know I don't want to be a big bummer, but Sacramento wants to take away our oil. Now they aren't even pretending. Before it was kind of a backroom conversation. It's not even a backroom conversation now. It's a flat-out conversation by the governor and his aides. Fossil fuels will be phased out. Hey, Kern County, we're your friends. We're going to give pensions to all those oil field workers. And my question is, because unfortunately I am the delegate that has to interact on these issues, what about our libraries? What about our parks? What about law enforcement? How are you replacing? So we have some challenges. And I got it, people don't want to be taxed. I don't like to be taxed either. But if I went into but just to remind you, how we all shop in Lancaster, Palmdale, because sometimes we don't have a choice, and that tax goes to LA. And their sales tax is 2 cents higher than ours. Every dollar you spend in Lancaster benefits LA County. And last time I looked, they didn't send anything for your sheriff's department. I mean, there's mutual aid. I'm not going to diss the LA County Sheriff, but you know what I'm saying here. So I think we're going into some years of, you know, real looking at ourselves as a county and the 900,000 people here and saying, who do we want to be, and why are we letting our tax dollars, when we shop outside, go someplace else? And who would that 1 penny hurt? And what kind of money could that generate? You know, it's the same thing with homelessness. We're trying, the county is putting up $2 million in this year's budget. You know, we've given extra money to the women's shelter, and the women's shelter is going to be expanding in Mojave and other places. The city of Bakersfield, on the other hand, tax themselves, and they're going to have $40 million a year just for homelessness. They're hiring, and they're putting it into law enforcement and homelessness. $40 million a year just from their little tax hike. So I certainly am a conservative fiscally, but this is like saying, I'm not going to give you any more resources, but you got to do more. That's what the state of California is saying. That's what they say to the superintendent of schools. Do more, but I'm not going to send you any money. Do more, but I'm not going to do. We're going to build houses. We're under attack because we're not building enough affordable housing, but they're not going to send us any money. So that was my answer. If we had a half-cent sales tax for roads and a law enforcement tax, things would look very different. They would look very different. You know, Fresno has a tax for parks, or a tax for libraries. I'm trying to remember which it is. Right? And they survived. What is it for parks? Parks. For parks? Yes, for parks. And the unfortunate story is that if we passed it in 1988, we only would have needed 50% of voters to pass it. Now we need a 2/3 vote. And how many people here? I actually worked on the bonds for the schools, a couple of those committees in my spare time. And, you know,
Spare time?
I used to have spare time. I don't know, but I did. And, you know, one time we lost by like 5 votes. Literally making our 2/3. It's brutal. It's brutal. It's brutal to have to do that when we all know that that is local money. So there you go. There's my pitch. I think the board has balanced their budget. We just came out of our fiscal crisis. That's the good news. I think that going forward, they are committed to law enforcement. That's why they're putting more money into this conversation about raising pay, other sorts of things for law enforcement. And, you know, we need, what was the last estimate, 16 deputies for this area? Is that the last estimate?
We need a lot more than we have.
Something like, was it something like that? It was 14 deputies. Okay, and so,
John has a question.
yes,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
sir.
Maybe I missed it, but Where's the Starbucks gonna go at?
You didn't hear it from me.
Next to the
But you
donut
know
shop.
all that vacant property, you know all that vacant property across from Albertsons that we keep hoping something's gonna happen on?
You mean where the sign says, commercial property
Yeah,
planning?
the one where every weekend people go to sell their cars. And the food vendors come. It's on the other piece across the street.
Thank you.
Look at Albertsons and turn around.
All right, well, thank you very much. You know, I really appreciate people who care about their community. I appreciate all of your opinions. If you have specific questions on things, that's okay. Let him talk. He's a talker. Go ahead and email me if you have specific questions about other sorts of things, and I really, appreciate the time. This action by the board was not taken lightly. They did not want to send a message that we're suddenly changing direction and we want to do it, but they just did not feel they could leave only one option. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't forget the seniors and their coffee.
I
Personally am going to donate. No, I'm going to donate.
Okay, California Assembly Representative Brandon, I see you back there.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry I was late. Unfortunately, I've been having some car trouble the last couple of days, so that's been a little wonky in and of itself. So, following that up, who wants to hear about the crazy stuff going on in Sacramento?
Yes, me too. Tell us.
No, but in all seriousness, so this legislative cycle, little over 2,000 bills were proposed. Little over 1,000 of them were passed. The governor had until October 13th at midnight to sign or veto any of the bills on his desk. So currently, as of October 13th, and I apologize, I'm going to be reading off my phone a little bit because this is a lot of numbers and stuff. He signed 870 and had a veto rate of about 16.5%. So upside, we had a very successful year in Assemblyman Lackey's office. We proposed 15 bills, 7 passed and were signed. 5 of them were pushed to 2-year bills and only 2 were vetoed. So I believe we were actually one of the most successful Republican legislators in the state of California in terms of 1-year passage rates. So some of the different bills we had passed were the CHP DUID bill to conduct more research for the CHP, or more research and funding for the CHP to look into driving under the influence of drugs. Beyond that, we had a guide dog bill passed to offer more protections to guide and service dogs. Peace officer standards and trainings bill, a cannabis research program bill, a paratransit bill, and a suicide prevention grant fund bill. So, personally, I love a lot of the bills that we proposed, and I'm not saying that just because I work for Tom and I have to say that. A lot of the bills we passed this year did do a lot of good. It's promoting a lot of public safety and a lot of mental health, which, with the large homeless crisis, that is something that is definitely needed. Beyond that, some of the big pieces of legislation that were signed this year were AB 392 and SB 230, which clarifies the standards of use of deadly force for peace officers. Obviously, that was a huge point of contention over like a good 6-month period. It did limit the scope in which an officer can actually utilize force, and it limited, and it broadened the scope in which they can be investigated for the use of force. So, made it a little bit more difficult for our police officers to be able to do their jobs, but it was gutted to a certain extent prior to passing and actually became a little more lax than it originally was. So it still allows for, I'm spacing on the phrase, I apologize. It still allows for the perception if you fear for your life, you are able to use force. Instead of, it allows for reasonable justification rather than necessary justification. There we go, I think that's the wording. Beyond that, there was a AB 1482 was passed. It caps annual rent at 5%, 10% with inflation. AB5 was passed, which I came here and talked a lot about. That was offered carve-outs for the Dynamax decision and the split between independent contractors and employees. Then we have SB 61 expands the one handgun per month purchase regulation to also apply to rifles. So now that that is passed, when it goes into effect in January, you're only able to buy one rifle or long gun per month as well as a handgun. So they all fall under the same regulation now. So if you guys are planning on buying handguns,
So,
you got like 2 more months.
does that mean like
rifles.
one handgun
Either.
or one rifle per month, or one handgun and one?
What, basically, you're only allowed to buy one gun a month. That's how it plans
So
it
you
out.
get to all.
Yeah, you just toss it, build the collection slowly. Beyond that, some of the big pieces of legislation that were vetoed was AB 500. It would have created a 6-week paid maternity leave for teachers. Unfortunately, that was vetoed, so yeah. And the other one I'm talking about was AB 891, which would have required cities and counties to designate certain parking lots for homeless people to sleep in. Yeah, I see your face.
Did you say
Could you repeat that, please?
Is
Yes.
that vetoed?
Which one?
Is that passed or vetoed?
Veto.
Vetoed.
So AB 891, essentially what it would have done would require cities and counties to provide parking lots for homeless individuals to sleep in at night. That one, it kind of slipped under the table for a lot of the legislative process. A lot of people didn't hear about it. Shockingly, didn't get a lot of publicity, but it was vetoed. So I'm not sure whether they're going to try and propose it again next year or what the updates on that are so far.
Parking lot instead of a structure.
Yes,
It's-
sleeping in your car or staying in an RV. That's good.
Beyond that, Assemblyman Lackey was out here in September. We recognized Jay's Hideaway as our September Business of the Month, which was awesome. Personally, I love that place. They make great burgers. And that is not a plug. And then we just did our Lancaster Community Coffee. We're doing 2 more out in rural areas. One being Wrightwood, one being Acton before the end of the year. And we participated this year in the Senior Expo, recognizing the Senior of the Year. And that was pretty much all today. So it's been a fun week. Assemblyman Lackey's going to be back in the district until January, and then he's going to be back up, bouncing between the Capitol and the district. But for right now, we're trying to just pack his calendar with a lot of stuff, get him out as much as possible. So if you guys ever need anything, as always, feel free to give our office a call. We're always here. And sorry for the extremely dull reading of like 40 different bill numbers. Trust me, I feel your pain. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Brent.
Could I just add something? That was a great rundown, but for anybody who is a landlord in here, the rent cap exempts any apartment older than 15 years, right? So if it was built within the last 15 years, it's exempt, and single-family homes are exempt, unless they're owned by a corporation. If you're owned by one of those corporations that goes out and buys it all up, there's a rent cap. The reason I know that is because my office has a fair housing coordinator, and so we're probably going to be getting the calls from people on illegal rents. But they did exempt kind of the newer stuff. So 15 and older, so they're trying to keep displacement, right? Those are the rents that go up all the time, and then people kick people out, and then they bulldoze them down, right?
So I own a house in Bakersfield that I rent out. And
How old is the house?
It's
Oh, it's
in-
single family, then you're exempt.
Yeah.
You're exempt. Good for you.
Oh, really? So there is
It's an oil
5% a year, you can only go up, so
No,
single
there's no
families.
that, that's exempt. That part's exempt. This rent cap only applies if a bunch of single-family homes are owned by a corporation, which that was the foreclosure thing where people went out and bought them all. Okay, they're not exempt. Or if your apartment building is older than 15 years. So the last 15 years is exempt. But 16 years and back, you can't, you're capped on your rent. This is an LA thing. Right?
And actually, I forgot to add 2 things, sorry. If anyone recalls the last bill that I brought up at the last meeting, it was essentially the bill to extend sales hours for alcohol to 4 a.m. rather than 2 a.m. That died. And we are extremely proud to say a lot of that was killed in the Public Safety Committee by Assemblyman Lackey, so good to God for that one. The other one, AB 984, that was our suicide prevention bill that did pass. It's a 50-50 split on the grant funding. 50% of it is set aside for desert and rural areas. So that focuses a lot on underserved communities that don't have a lot of mental health resources. So something I just wanted to tie in at the end. Thank you.
What can the grants be used for?
Pretty much any mental health services, anything for suicide prevention.
But you can't build a facility with it?
That one I'm not 100% sure, but I can look into it.
Thank you,
I
Brandon.
have one problem.
Kern County Supervisor Laura, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm going to use the podium. I'm like, wow, RMAC is stepping it up, stepping in podium.
No, it was just hidden.
I know, where are you keeping this? This is so really fun. Good evening. My name is Laura Lynn Wyatt. I am with 2nd District Supervisor Zach Scrivener's office. I am his East Kern field representative. I want to apologize for the meeting being canceled last month.
It was fun.
We did have a little bit of excitement with a gas leak. Southern California Gas Company did find a valve cracked in the stove in the kitchen. They were able to get back here with the help of our General Services Department of the county and repair it at 8 o'clock the next morning, so the seniors were able to have their party at noon. I think they had their party. So I apologize. So a couple things. How many people know how many square miles Kern County is? Lorelei, you're not allowed.
How would you know that?
It's big square.
It's big, right?
It's actually bigger than the state of Massachusetts if you don't count the water in Massachusetts.
There you go.
8,000.
It's 8,202.
There you go. Very good. Over 8,000, okay? District 2, Supervisor Scrivener's district,
Right.
is just under 4,000. Oh, yeah. So as you can imagine, we're very busy. And listening to Lorelei talk, she gave you a really good idea of some of the big hot topics that the Board of Supervisors are working on. One of the biggest things I want to piggyback on is the budget and getting rid of that 4-year deficit. Almost $45 million gone, right? That is a huge, huge accomplishment. In that new budget, I am proud to say there are no cuts to public safety. No cuts to the fire department, no cuts to the sheriff's department, no cuts to the DA, no cuts to probation. Public safety is a huge priority for Supervisor Scrivener. I want everybody in this room to understand that. We're working on a resource fair. We did one in Fraser Park. It was a huge success. And what we do is go into the county park and the community, and several departments within the county come and they set up booths and they interact with the community, they educate the community. Some of them have games and prizes that they give away and things like that. And then at sundown, we play a free movie and supply popcorn for the community. We had one on target for Rosamond for fall. And then looking at some of the community calendars, we realized that we were up against some really heavy competition. You guys have a lot of events going on in the community during this time of year. And we didn't want to step on anybody or double anything that was going on, so we've tabled that now till the spring. But I will be reporting back to you again as we approach closer, okay? But we will be asking for RMAC's assistance. Hopefully you guys can get out there, maybe have a booth, maybe help spread the word to the community of who RMAC is, what you do. It'd be great to have you guys there. So, okay? So Lorelei touched on a lot this evening, so I'm going to keep my report pretty short. Did anybody have any questions for me?
How was your weekend?
It was good, thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Seeing there's no budget cuts, are they going to go ahead and fill the rest of the manifest for Rosamond for our sheriff's department?
Okay, so there's a little bit of a misunderstanding that I want to clarify for the residents. There, in the new budget, there is $11.1 million for public safety. That's all departments. It is against the law for the supervisors to tell the sheriff's department how to use their money. Okay? So the Board of Supervisors tells the sheriff, here's your budget, do with as you may, as you see fit. So it's up to Sheriff Youngblood how he staffs, where he staffs, how he utilizes that budget. Okay? So I think, you know, public safety is a big concern. Supervisor Scribner heard the residents loud and clear that they feel like they're underserved with regards to law enforcement in East Kern. And that's why he voted to put that sales tax on the ballot. He voted yes to put that sales tax increase on the ballot at the request of Sheriff Youngblood. That was Sheriff Youngblood's proposal to the Board of Supervisors, and Supervisor Scribner said, yes, I think that needs to go on the ballot. Then the residents said no. So that's kind of the battle that we're up against right now. Lorelei touched on it also. I see personally, if we want to improve things going forward, we're going to have to not only tighten our belts, but we're going to have to open our wallets at some point. So, any other questions?
Does the supervisor have any comments about the billboards around town?
Supervisor Scribner is aware that there is a billboard.
There's one in Mojave also.
Okay. He's aware that there is a billboard, but again, it is against state law for him to tell the sheriff's department how to use their budget. So anybody who has any questions about that, I will give you my cell phone number. I am here in Rosamond before RMAC. I am in this building at 4:30 every month for office hours. Please come and talk to me. If you have any concerns, if you have something that you want me to bring to the supervisor's attention, come and see me. I really encourage it. I hope that you will. Yes, ma'am.
This is just a comment, but we feel, maybe I'm not speaking for you, but I've heard a lot of people say that the money goes to Bakersfield and it stays there. That
What money?
Money for sheriffs and, you know, sheriff's officers and things, that things are allocated to the high population areas, and that.
Again, that's something that you would have to.
It's a feeling. I was just telling you what we feel.
That's input and a question that would have to go to the sheriff's department. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys, see you next month.
Okay, Rosamond Community Services District, Ray?
Yes, got a couple of items here. What I wanted to touch on is that we have had our first construction meeting for the treatment plant expansion project, and they should be moving equipment on site very shortly if they haven't already started moving equipment on site already. We are looking to officially break ground sometime around the middle of next month, hopefully. One of the things that the board passed at our last meeting was to allow public tours of the treatment plant and our facilities. And the reason for this is the board feels very strongly that the community needs to know what the Rosamond Community Service District is. Unfortunately, we've always been known as, you say the RCSD or Rosamond Community Service District, people kind of go, oh, you mean the water company? And yes, we are the water company, but that's not what our main function that we do. That's one of our functions. But one thing that can be very successful, and we're also going to be doing public education on recycled water, reclaimed water. And we're going to be reaching out to the school district to hopefully be able to get into the schools, to speak to students, do presentations before the school board, do presentations before the RMAC. But once we've got construction well underway and it's safe, we're going to open these public tours up to students, to where hopefully the school can send over some high school students and then middle school students to take a tour of the facilities. And one of the things that is a lot of people don't think about when you talk about wastewater management is the amount of jobs and careers attached with that industry. You have welders, electricians, lab personnel, operators, truck drivers, heavy equipment operators, crane operators, a lot of good, high-paying, skilled jobs are available in the wastewater industry. And we're hoping that by getting high school students and junior high school students out there and seeing the opportunities available to them, can maybe kind of steer them into going in that direction in school, or going into college and taking some water treatment courses, taking some more science courses, some biology courses, and get a good paying job in the wastewater treatment, wastewater reclamation field. So we're hoping that it'll be a success, but more importantly, we want the people to come out and see what your tax dollars are paying for. And that it's just not you flush the toilet or pull the plug on the drain and that's the last you think about it. You know, come and see how it's processed. It's a fascinating process, it really is. We're also working on, with our committees, looking ways to streamline our maintenance programs. We're looking for ways to cut costs and be more efficient with our programs, but without cutting quality of service and without taking shortcuts. We want to be able to get the equipment to last as long as it can and keep the costs as low as we can for you, the community. And I don't know if Mr. Washington has anything to add, but that's all I have.
I'll make it a little more brief. 2 weeks ago, we had a very successful waste bulk pickup day in the community. We partnered with Waste Management to accomplish this. We had well over 40 senior citizens that called us up, and we went out and picked up waste, well, not waste, but bulk items for them. So looking forward to being a little better coordinated and having another one in maybe the next couple months or so.
That was very successful. I was amazed at the heap of junk out there. I went back to take a picture and they were already in the bins.
Yeah, we were
I don't
amazed
think
too.
if you didn't see it, it just was like, oh my God, what a bunch of junk.
We're trying to avoid that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Rosamond Chamber of Commerce.
Seeing how Gene just took off, I'll go ahead and cover for him. We just had our meeting earlier this evening. We wanted to thank everybody who came out to Septemberfest. Not only our vendors, our car show, the parade, but also everybody that just came to have a good time and you know, support the troops and honor the POW-MIA, which was the theme of our parade this year. We're planning our first event at the Rosamond Event Center there on Diamond Street, right next to the Chamber. That's going to take place October 26th. That's the Saturday before Halloween. We're calling it our Diamond Boo event, and it's going to be free to the public. One of our board members went out and bought a giant inflatable movie screen, so we're going to be showing a kids movie that day, so have the community come out and participate. We're looking for sponsors for that event. If you know any businesses that want to donate $50, we're going to have on the screen before and after the movie for 30 minutes we'll have company logos going of who sponsored the event. And our members, our chamber members, are able to set up booths and hand out candy and information and stuff that day. So feel free to come out for our Diamond Boo event. Again, that's going to be October 26th, starting at 6 o'clock. Let's see. We just voted in a couple new members, so we're sitting right now right around 50 members. So we're steadily growing, and we're looking to do some more marketing programs and sponsorship campaigns on an annual basis. That way, if there's any companies out there that want to be involved and just do like a one-shot deal to sponsor all of our events for the year, we'll be able to do that for you. But we're still working on the details of that. But once that's ready, we'll let everybody know.
Did you say 50 or 15?
For the
For members, number of members in the chamber.
50. 50.
50.
Is the event center? Is the event center?
I defer to the superintendent.
Oh, I didn't see it. Sorry, Barbara.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be back. I was here last month, but as soon as I got out of my Tahoe, they said, we have a gas leak, so I'm back in. But it is a pleasure always to be here. Some updates from Southern Kern Unified School District. We are well underway. Today was Parent Conference Day. So we had our conferences from 1 to 4, dinner hour, break hour for our teachers from 4 to 5, and then resumed with our parent conferences from 5 to 8, so we could make sure that those parents who are working had an opportunity to meet with their children's teachers. This Sunday, we have our initial WASP visit, not our initial, but our first day of a 4-day visit. We're having a meet and greet at Rosamond High School at 3 o'clock. Our visiting WASC accreditation team will be here WASC is Western Association of Schools and Colleges. Every great high school must be WASC accredited so that the classes that our children take are applicable to Cal State, UC, private universities. So that's very, very important. Our goal is to get a 6-year accreditation, which would be the maximum accreditation that we could get. So we know that our WASC lead is the principal at Bell High School. So he'll be here Sunday, and they will be staying until Wednesday evening here in the Rosamond area, visiting the school, visiting all classrooms, meeting parents, meeting community members. So Sunday at 3 o'clock, if you have nothing better to do, feel free to join us at our meet and greet at Rosamond High School. As many of you know, we had a $3.4 million debt that was accrued in Southern Kern Unified School District over a year ago, and we borrowed these funds from Kern County Superintendent of Schools. I'm happy to say that since August, we have paid back $1.8 million, and I believe at the end of this month we'll return another $250,000, leaving us with $1,350,000 debt to Kern County. The prediction is that if we can stay focused on our budget, this $1.3 million will be paid off by the end of this school year, maybe June, July. That still doesn't totally take us out of the woods because Kern County will stay very close monitoring what we do until we have a reserve. So our goal, my goal is to have, and I know also the Board of Trustees, is to have a healthy reserve in Kern County, because if my understanding is correct, this is the 3rd time Kern County has had to borrow money. So I don't want to see that happen again. So I'm very, very pleased at the way that we're staying focused and yet meeting the needs of our students and our teachers and our staff. Yesterday I got a very exciting call from a representative of the governor's office. We received a $5.025 million grant to fund a new kindergarten program or new kindergarten building. So I believe we have plans already from our architects to add an additional building at the new Rosamond Elementary School, probably for 4 new kindergarten rooms. If there should be excess money from that, my goal is to have the board consider remodernization of the old Rising Stars, which is the building beside the new Rosamond Elementary School, and to make that possibly a STEM school of choice, a K-5 STEM school of choice, and maybe make some, align that with something at the base with, you know, a lot of the engineering and math and science. That is my goal. Should that $5 million be enough? I've heard it possibly could be, so I'm meeting next week with architects, and I'll get a better idea of how far that 5.025 million will stretch. Our enrollment currently is about a little under 3,600, which is quite good. We do believe that we're going to continue to grow. We've been informed there's an apartment building on the east side and about 177 homes projected on the west side that could come in down the road that will, we will need additional classrooms. Tomorrow's a holiday. We will not be in school tomorrow. We're quite looking forward. It's a local holiday. It's a local. I didn't create it, but I'm going to enjoy it. Just put it that way. So don't know why our calendar has a holiday. I think it's because our teachers are working late in the evening tonight, and so we have an extra day in our calendar. So the teachers negotiated that before me. So I will not argue with the teachers about that. I'm going to leave it. October 25th is our homecoming game against Cal City. Love to see all of you out if you want to root for our road runners. And on the 23rd, we're having our powder puff game where the girls play football and the boys cheer. It's a little, I don't know if maybe you were ever a part of that, but it's a pretty exciting thing. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone from Antelope Valley Citizens for Responsible Use of Water? No. Anyone from Edmonds Air Force Base? Any other community reports? Yes, John.
The supervisors voted to change the speed limit on 20th Street between Orange and Rosamond Boulevard. You don't have to go 35 miles an hour anymore. You can go 45 miles an hour.
Thank you. That's good news.
Everybody goes 45 anyway.
That was the mentality, just send it out.
That was the answer.
Just say that the house on Boulevard.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on down to item 8, community announcements. Normally this is where you might pop in, Albert, and give us a real estate report.
Sure, I've got some numbers here for you. So, Albert Canton, local realtor. Just want to give you guys some updated information on what's going on in our community here in Rosamond. We currently have 47 active homes for sale with an average list price of $299,507. We have 48 homes pending with an average sales price of, average asking price of $282,212. So it's nice to see those numbers kind of close. So we've got 47 active, 48 pending. So what that tells us is that we may actually be coming up with a lack of available homes that people are selling because there's so much activity. Which is good news for people that are looking to sell. It's going to boost your value. September, we did have 32 sales with an average sales price of $268,731. So if you guys want to get out your calculators and try and average out what your home may be worth, the average price per square foot of those homes was $162.36 a square foot. So you take that, multiply it by the size of your house, and you get about the average price of what your house would be. The nice thing is that the solds, pendings, and actives are all relatively close as far as what that average price per square foot is. So our pendings right now are sitting at $168.95 a square foot, and the actives are only at $169.28 a square foot. So they're all pretty close. So we've got a lot of activity in the area. It looks like the pendings are pushing up close to or past what's available. So if you guys know anybody that's looking to sell, it might be a good time to jump into the market.
Thank you, Albert.
Community announcements, I have something. So Rosamond Auxiliary is doing our baskets for Thanksgiving. We are doing 75 this year. So we are on the hunt for 75 turkeys. Just to let everyone know. We will be collecting on and putting out the baskets on the 15th, 16th, and 17th of November. So anytime before then, just contact me, Linda Norton, Sandy Kirk, Kimberly Arbara. We'll come pick up, meet you for drop off. It is tax deductible as well.
When you say put the baskets out, where are they going to be put out?
Baskets go to all of our veterans.
No, that's where they go to. You said putting.
We put them together at the
Oh,
post.
distribute. Okay.
Yes.
I thought you were putting out baskets.
No, putting out, no.
For people to
Distribution.
donate to.
No, to distribute them on those
That's not
dates.
what you, that wasn't really clear. Okay.
Now let's go ahead and move into the public comment period. Is there anyone that has anything? Let's go ahead and move into the business meeting committee reports. The first one tonight is 10A, which is new revised crosswalks and upgrades to signalized crosswalks. Each of the directors have been given a copy of the draft. We are looking at it still internally. It will come up for a vote in November. But essentially, this talks about crosswalks in 3 areas of Rosamond, one being down by Gateway Apartments, the other up here by Rosamond High School at Eagle Way and Rosamond Boulevard. And then the last one down by Mojave Tropico Road and Rosamond Boulevard. And so we're going to be making a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors regarding that. Okay, Waste Management Services, do you have anything, Director Checker?
I am glad that RCST and everyone we all work together. I'm glad to see that the different agencies working together to make this better. I know that ours went well when we did ours back in July. Or, I'm sorry, was it July? April?
Yes, it was July.
July. And then this last one, so hopefully we will get a date soon, set for another. Right, Allie?
Yeah, whatever you guys tell me. Figure something out.
We'll figure something out.
Okay, Parks and Recreation, do we have any update on that? We missed out on a great presentation by General Services last month because of our situation.
But they were here to help.
Yes.
Are
But
they
I'm
coming
going
back?
to be inviting them back for our November meeting. I think it's really important for us to get a good dialogue going with them and hopefully doing bigger and better things for the community of Rosamond.
And they were a big help that night.
Yes. Item D, New Community Bank. I have no update on this. I have been talking with Alexis about this. They were looking for a location, but they're looking for a location that they can cohabit with someone. They don't want to open their own storefront. They want to basically have a little nook or cranny inside an existing business somewhere. It's being looked at. There hasn't been too much that falls into to the right size and things of that nature. So it's still being looked at this point. Okay. Under old business, East Rosamond access for emergency vehicles. We have a draft letter for this, which each of the directors got tonight. We'll be reviewing that. It will come up for a vote and signature for the November meeting.
I've got one suggested addition to the first paragraph, which the paragraph as it reads now says, the RMAC, Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council, as well as several Rosamond residents attending our meetings are concerned about the effects of the railroad crossing being blocked at Rosamond Boulevard and the need for an alternative crossing for emergency access route should this crossing be blocked for an extended period. I think if we inserted the word periodically, so that it reads, are concerned about the effects of the railroad crossing being blocked periodically. It's not blocked all the time. You know, so I think that would help to clarify that.
Okay. We can all do markups on these, and then we'll sit down and.
So our action then for these two letters is to read, review, and come back with recommendations next time. Okay. We need to be sure to put Seaneen's name.
Okay. She will have a package of it. As a matter of fact, she does have. Okay, item B, administration office space, files, and equipment. There is no update on this. We're still waiting for word on whether we're going to get any furnishings. I did have someone from the community donate a small desk for there, so it is available for you to use, Laura. I just need to clean it up a little bit. That's why I brought some furniture comments.
Well, I did tell Zach we could come up and pick that stuff up, but he hasn't given me the key to his office yet.
Probably won't.
He took a bit of a dim view.
He had stuff in there that needed dusting, so I'll just take it and I'll dust it.
Okay, and the last item into that category is the RMAC vacancies. We have Seaneen on board tonight. We have another person who's currently being reviewed and considered. I'm not at liberty at this point, though, to divulge their name. Okay, new business, long and short-term goals for 2019, 2020, and 2021. I was having some posters made for us, and they're not ready, so you'll see them in November. The next item is the December 2019 RMAC meeting. We're not going to talk about it too much tonight, except for you guys to think about the December meeting, whether you want to have a December RMAC meeting. And if you do, then we'll put it up for a vote November 17th. Okay. With that, we'll move to Director's Agenda Referrals. Do you have anything, Dennis?
Yeah. Well, not in terms of referrals, no. Director's comment. I've got something for
We're
that.
not there yet.
Sorry. I was.
Okay, does anyone stop, if no one has anything for that area?
I do.
Okay.
I want to see the, as we were speaking earlier, the disaster preparedness, and I will reach out to Wendy Benson and see the availability.
Okay.
We probably need, backing up a little bit, we probably need to keep the, I understand, I was so confused, to keep up the business of reviewing the lighting, the street lighting situation.
That's on our particular file.
Yeah, we probably ought to have that on the agendas.
Okay. Okay, any other items into that category? If not, we'll go to director's comments. Dennis, you can take that.
Yeah, there was a.
Oh, that's your comment?
In the Valley Press in the last few days about so highlighting the technical career training that's available at Rosamond High School. I want to publicly thank you guys, you know, the district and the school for that huge effort. We talk about a homeless situation, and a large part of that is people having good jobs. And if we can, and not everybody is destined to be an academic, but we can certainly do a better job of providing that kind of training for the young people as they're coming up. And our school, I think our school here at Rosamond High School is doing a wonderful job in that way for preparing folks who aren't necessarily college bound to get career technical training. And I wanted to thank them. Please pass that along to them for me.
Anything you didn't? Don, do you have anything?
Nope.
Seaneen?
I have nothing at this time, thank you.
Lisa?
No, at this time.
Brennan?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, I will cap it off with one comment, and that is, we try very hard to make these meetings an hour and a half or less. We're not always successful. We are currently considering going to twice-a-month meetings. It's not something that we really want to do, but there are a lot of things that I think the board needs to be able to do for the community, and it requires more interaction than we currently are able to do outside of a formal meeting. So at this point, we ask your indulgence if we run to 9 o'clock. We don't want to, but if we do, it's because of the items that are discussed. We had a good presentation tonight from Lorelei. I expect the same thing to happen possibly with General Services next month. But we'll always be pushing to try to make it an hour and a half maximum length if we can. Okay. With that, do I have a motion for a return?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.